You just got called into a meeting you weren't expecting. Your manager is there and someone from HR. The door closes, you're being let go. In that moment, your brain shuts down. You sign whatever they put in front of you just to escape. That single mistake can cost you thousands of dollars. Your severance negotiation starts before you even know what's happening. Most developers treat severance as a take-it-or-leave-it deal. That's exactly what companies count on. They present a package, you sign, everyone moves on. But severance is a contract. And like any contract, it's negotiable. The difference between accepting the first offer and negotiating thoughtfully? Often 2 to 6 months of additional salary. That's not chump change. At $150,000 a year, that's $25,000 to $75,000 you're leaving on the table. That's runway for your job search. That's paying your mortgage while you figure out your next move. That's breathing room. Here's what nobody tells you. Severance isn't about being nice. It's about risk management for the company. They want you to sign a waiver promising not to sue them. That waiver has value. You're trading your legal rights for money. Make sure you're paid fairly for what you're giving up. Step 1. Never sign anything on the spot. Ever. When they hand you the separation agreement, ask for time to review it. I need to read this carefully and talk to my family. You're entitled to that. Many states give you 21 days by law to consider a severance agreement if you're over 40. Even if you're younger, a reasonable request for a few days is standard. They want a clean exit. Rushing you creates risk for them. If you push back on the timeline, they know you're less likely to challenge it later. That's worth something to them. Step 2, understand what you're actually giving up. That waiver doesn't just mean you can't sue for wrongful termination, it means you can't sue for discrimination. You can't sue for unpaid overtime. You can't sue for retaliation for whistleblowing. You're sweeping a lot of potential legal claims off the table. That's worth something. Use it. Think about it this way. If the company wanted you to sign away the right to sue them for anything forever, what would that be worth to you? Now flip it. What's it worth to them to have you sign that away? That's the lever you're pulling. Step 3, do your homework before you ever negotiate. Research your company's past practices. Have they laid people off before? What did they offer? Check your offer letter and employee handbook. Sometimes severance is spelled out there. Look at your state laws. Some require payment of unused vacation time. Some have specific rules about final paychecks. Knowledge is leverage. If you know the company gave 3 months to the last person in your role and they're offering you to, you have data. If you know your state requires immediate payment of unused vacation and they're including it as severance, you can spot the accounting trick. Step 4, build your case calmly. This isn't about emotional appeals. It's about business value. How long have you been there? Have you consistently exceeded expectations? Did you take on additional responsibilities without additional pay? Did you recently complete a major project? 3 years tenure, consistently exceeded performance metrics, led the migration project that saved $200K annually, mentored 2 junior developers. That's the kind of language that gets you more than the boilerplate. These are the reasons to give you more than the standard 2 weeks per year of service. Write them down. Keep it factual. Package. Step 5, ask for the right things. Money is obvious, but don't stop there. Ask them to keep your laptop. That's thousands of dollars in value. Ask for extended healthcare coverage. Ciobra is expensive. Ask them to cover months of it. Ask for a glowing reference letter signed by your manager, not just a confirmation of employment. Ask for LinkedIn recommendations. Ask for outplacement services, career coaching, resume help. If you have unvested stock options, ask for accelerated vesting. If you're close to a bonus, ask for it to be prorated and paid. Every single one of these things costs them less than cash and gives you real value. Let's talk about what's actually negotiable with real numbers. Say you've been at your company for 3 years, earning $145,000 base plus $15,000 bonus. They offer you 6 weeks of salary, payment of unused vacation, and the standard will provide neutral references. That's about $16,700 plus maybe $3,000 in vacation. Total, roughly $20,000. Here's what you counter with. First, the money, you ask for 3 months instead of 6 weeks. That bumps you to $36,250 more than double. Why 3 months? Because 3 years of service, 1 month per year, is a reasonable baseline. But you don't stop there. You ask for your laptop and M2 MacBook Pro that costs them $2,500 but would cost you $3,200 to replace. They say yes because they have hundreds of them, and they'd rather you keep it than wipe it and put it in storage. You ask for 6 months of healthcare coverage. Your Cobra would be $800 per month. That's $4,800 value to you, but maybe $3,600 to them with their corporate rates. Again, cheaper than cash. You asked for your bonus to be prorated. It's December. You're 3 months into the performance year. You get $3,750. That's money you earned. You ask for accelerated vesting on your stock options. You have 5,000 options vesting over 4 years. You're 3 years in. 1,250 options at 10 strike, current price 15. That's $6,250 of immediate value. Maybe they agree to accelerate half. That's $3,125 in your pocket. You ask for a reference letter, not just, we confirm they worked here, but a real letter signed by your VP praising your specific contributions. Sarah led the authentication rewrite that reduced our support tickets by 40%. She mentored 2 junior developers to promotion. That letter is worth its weight in gold in your job search. It costs them nothing to write. You ask for outplacement services, career coaching, resume review, interview prep. This might cost them $2,000 if you bought it yourself. They already have contracts with these firms. They throw it in. It costs them almost nothing on the margin. So let's tally this counteroffer. 3 months salary, $36,250. Laptop, $3,200 value. Healthcare, $4,800. Prorated bonus, $3,750. Accelerated vesting half, $3,150. Reference letter and outplacement, maybe $2,000 in equivalent value if you had to pay. Total, roughly $53,000 versus their original $20,000. You just more than doubled your severance package without being aggressive. You asked for things that made sense, backed by your tenure and contributions, and you framed it as, this is what would make this transition work for me. Do you get everything? Probably not. Maybe they come back at 2 months salary, no accelerated vesting, but everything else. That's still roughly $43,000 more than double their first offer. That's the power of negotiation. Now let's talk about something almost nobody considers, unemployment benefits. Here's the critical point. Severance and unemployment interact in ways that can surprise you. In most states, if your severance is paid as a lump sum, you can collect unemployment immediately. If it's paid out over time as salary continuation, you typically can't collect until that period ends. This is a huge deal. Say your state offers $600 per week in unemployment, max 26 weeks. That's $15,600 of benefits. If you take 6 weeks of salary continuation, you're delaying $3,600 of unemployment. But more importantly, you're burning through your 26-week window. If your job search takes 6 months and you spent 6 weeks on salary continuation, you now have only 20 weeks of unemployment left. That's $3,600 you left on the table. So when you negotiate, ask for lump sum payment, not salary continuation. Frame it as, I prefer the severance as a lump sum to help with my transition planning. They might prefer it too. It closes the books for them faster. Win-win. But if they push back on a lump sum, do the math. If they're offering 3 months salary continuation versus 2 months lump sum, you might actually come out ahead with the shorter lump sum because you can start collecting unemployment sooner. Also understand that severance is generally taxable income. It's treated like regular wages. But if you negotiate for your laptop, healthcare coverage, reference letters, outplacement services, those aren't taxable. A $3,000 laptop is worth more to you than $3,000 in cash because you don't pay taxes on it. This is why diversifying your ask beyond just cash is so powerful. You're maximizing after-tax value. Here's the hard truth. Negotiating severance feels deeply personal. You're already reeling from rejection. Now you have to advocate for yourself to the very people who just rejected you. It's emotionally brutal. Your instinct is to disappear, to preserve your dignity, to just be done. But that instinct costs you money. The company isn't emotional about this. It's a business decision for them. Treat it the same way. You're not begging. You're discussing the terms of a business transaction. And let's be real about what happens after. The days that follow are harder than anyone tells you. You wake up Tuesday morning and there's nowhere to be. You check your phone and there are no Slack notifications. You realize your entire social structure at work is gone. Coffee break you took with Sarah every morning. That's over. The lunch crew, you're not invited anymore. The jokes you shared with your desk neighbor, they don't exist outside that context. The loss hits you in waves. First, it's the money anxiety. Can I pay my mortgage? Then it's the identity crisis. Who am I if I'm not a senior engineer at this company? Then it's the loneliness. The people you spent 40 hours a week with don't call. They're still there, dealing with their own work, and you're not part of it anymore. And then there's the shame. Even when you know it wasn't your fault. Layoffs, restructuring, budget cuts, there's a voice in your head asking what you could have done differently. Should I have worked more weekends? Should I have spoken up more in meetings? Should I have been more visible? That voice is lying to you. Layoffs are business decisions, not performance judgments. But the emotional part of your brain doesn't care what the logical part knows. It feels like rejection. It feels like failure. It feels like you're back at junior high getting cut from the team. The people who negotiate severance successfully aren't the ones who don't feel this stuff. They're the ones who feel it and do it anyway. They separate the emotional reality from the financial transaction. They say to themselves, this hurts. I'm allowed to hurt, but I'm also allowed to protect my financial future while I hurt. They treat the negotiation as separate from the loss. The negotiation is business. When you're sitting across from your manager of 3 years, the person who congratulated you when your daughter was born, the person you grabbed drinks with last Friday, and now they're offering you 2 weeks per year of... The grief is personal. They don't mix them. That's harder than it sounds. Service, it takes everything to not take it personally. To not say you too, like they're wishing you well. They're doing a job. You do yours. You ask for what you're worth. And here's the thing. Most managers expect you to negotiate. They're authorized to give more. They open with the minimum because they're trained to open with the minimum. If you don't push, you're voluntarily leaving money on the table. Not because they're being malicious, but because that's how the game is played. Companies train their managers to open low. They're not surprised when you counter. They're often surprised when you don't. This week's move: find your employment documents, your offer letter, your stock option agreement, your employee handbook. Screenshot them. Save them outside company systems. If you have personal files on your work laptop, back them up now. Not because something bad is happening, but because being prepared means you'll never be caught off guard. And if the day does come, you'll be ready to protect yourself. Write down your contributions. Not in a performance review kind of way, in a real, concrete way. In Q3, I built the caching layer that reduced API response time by 60%. In Q4, I onboarded 3 new hires and created the documentation they still use. Keep it updated. Not because you're planning to leave, but because if you're ever in a position to negotiate, you'll have the facts at your fingertips. Emotion makes you foggy. Facts keep you clear. Severance negotiation isn't about being confrontational. It's about being prepared. It's about knowing your value and asking for it. It's about treating your career like the business asset it is. You wouldn't sell your house for the first offer someone made. Don't sell your livelihood that way either. Subscribe for more career moves that keep you in the driver's seat. See you next time.